Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people.
You cannot shake hands with a clenched fist.
Produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and seed to the far corners of
the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We're not saying that planet Earth is coming to an end. We're saying that planet Earth is about to be refurbished, spaded under, and have another chance to serve as a garden for another civilization.
Most of the people in here are just your reflections. They're your mistakes.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
1 million of the planet's 8 million species are threatened.
You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence ought to be a habit, not an act.
Your lives and the credibility of the United Nations is at stake.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
The reason this is such an interesting time is not only because we're on the threshold of the end of this civilization.
They're trying to take you out with bullshit.
The experience of the past 2 years has proven beyond doubt that no nation can appease the Nazis.
To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish.
In the language of the U.S. Department of Defense, these are unidentified aerial phenomena.
Roswell's a very interesting place with a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
There is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
This is the Garden of Doom.
Welcome everybody into Garden of Doom, and this week we have with us Theshira Pather. She is the host of two podcasts, the Asian Tapestry and Legendary Africa. Today we are focusing on the Asian Tapestry, and first I want to welcome her to the show. How are you doing, Theshira?
Thanks so much for having me, Jeff. I'm doing great. It's great to be here.
No, thanks for coming on. So if any of you have not listened to her podcast, A, you should. B, you'll know that she sort of tells, not they. I'm always putting things in plural. Mostly myself, because I want this to seem like a bigger deal than it is when it's just me and my fiance who does the editing. So it is a we of sorts. Anyway, so what she does is she tells stories about myths, legends, and lore from, obviously in Legendary Africa is about Africa, and the Asian Tapestry is from Asia. But she tells them they're usually nice tales. It's almost like she's telling fairy tales in a nice, she's got a lovely sing-songy voice. They're lovely. Well, I've brought her on to Garden of Doom to not tell nice stories. I've asked her to talk about scary stuff, monsters and legends that are scary and, Garden of Doom stuff. Everything you would expect in the Garden of Doom. So if she gets too nicey, I'm here to make sure that she gets, channels her inner evil. So thank you for coming in. Thank you for sharing with us the Asian aspect. We're, just for those of you who are wondering, we are scheduled to do a show in the future with doing the same thing about Africa. But as the listeners know, I've finally broken that glass ceiling and gotten into Asia past the Middle East, and recently did a show on Indian and the Vedic culture and the pantheon there, and have a show scheduled to do the tenets of Hinduism and Hindu mysticism and numerology and astrology and that stuff. So, like I said, going ever east, and recently did a Garden View episode with my colleague Farzad, who's from Afghanistan. And while we didn't talk about anything Afghanistani, we will. So in the future, not on that show. That show's about intellectual property law. Boring. Let's get into the scary stuff. So firstly, Theshira, is there anything that you want to tell the folks? Anything besides those two shows you want to talk about? And keep in mind that for sure you will be able to promote everything at any point, but especially at the end as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for that. I was just thinking that I'm really keen to do this because I actually have a huge sort of horror fan and I love the dark stuff. But it's true that on my shows I don't don't really go to. I mean, I think maybe I did the Were Hyena was sort of the darkest I really got, because I try to sort of keep it open to everybody, aside from the occasional swearing. I want younger audiences to listen to it as well, I suppose. So I'm keen to get into the gritty details.
Okay, so we're going to turn you into a rated R superstar today. You're going Radio MA. We're going to see her dark side, and maybe those fans of hers that are looking for a little bit more teenage to adult content rather than tweener and kids. You'll hear a whole new Theshira. So listen, you're in the lead. Take us where you want. I would just ask it. I know that you will. Tell us where in the region it's from, because Asia is ginormous, with so many different cultures, peoples, religions, everything you can think of. And everybody who's listening to the show is on Earth, as far as I know, and they should know that. But you can tell us what region it's from, and then take us on. But this is your dance. You're leading.
Thanks. Yeah, that's always the interesting thing about this kind of law, more so with, I think, African law, where it's often really hard to pinpoint where this story came from, who's talked about it. Like, often you just get Indian myth or an African myth, and that's about it. You can't really tell where it's from, which is both annoying and also, I guess, quite interesting, because you're going to try your hardest to sort of delve into where they come from. So the first thing that I wanted to do was talk about the Vatala, and that's one of the creatures that I can't find anything in terms of where they're from. Maybe there are other people who can comment and be like, this is where it's from, but I couldn't. As far as I know, it's just from Hindu mythology. And basically the Vatala is a kind of a paranormal being. It's likened to a modern demonic vampire or zombie. So you've got 3 different things packed into one here.
Nice.
Have you ever heard of the Vatala?
I don't think so, but I did a couple shows on vampires, and it turns out that there is a lot of overlap between werewolves, zombies, and vampires, and even witches and shapeshifters. And it seems like the vampire is really more of a more modern construct, the last 1,000 years. Before that, I think anything before that, people are calling vampiric or vampires. I think they're taking liberties with what the creature really is. It's really some form of a revenant. But maybe the Vatala is something different. Maybe that's something I missed in my extensive research.
I think what happened really is that back in the good old days, that they sort of had everything, this creature, all sort of a mishmash. And as we got more and more modern, we've decided to separate them into sort of clear, this is vampire, this is a zombie, this is a demon or whatever. But I think, the old people were just like, it's everything.
Yeah.
So the Vatala hangs upside down from a tree. So that's where the vampiric aspect comes. But it possesses a corpse, and that corpse then stops decaying. So that's the zombie. And it's thought to be a spirit that lingers in graveyards, and it waits there to possess the sort of newly dead. So it wants somewhat of a bit of a juicy, bit of a fresh corpse. It doesn't want the decayed ones.
Sure. You want to still be handsome or beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, if I was to choose a dead person, it's going to be someone that's still lush.
That's right. You have to hang out by the Hollywood cemeteries.
Just go possess Chris Hemsworth.
Right. Not that we're wishing any harm on Chris Hemsworth or either of his two brothers, but those would be acceptable bodies for a zombie demonic ghost spirit.
Yeah. And then they're also thought to drive people insane, murder children, and cause miscarriages, which I found to be particularly creepy. So there's the demonic side of it. So it's like a real 3-in-1 special.
Do they drink blood?
That's interesting that they don't seem to. It seems like what they do mostly is possess. There's not enough literature, I guess, that tells us what they do, how they kill people.
Do they eat the people?
So honestly, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be able to say. The vaguest thing we have is that they kill them. If it's a demonic kind of possession, I don't know whether they would. I don't know how they would kill their host, or if they would. I'm gonna say probably eat them. if they're thinking of them as a vampire. Whether or not they suck their blood is, I think, up for debate.
Now, if they possess a dead body, and let's say they're not particularly happy with their body, or they just believe in variety is the spice of life, and they and they kill their next victim. Let's just say they strangle them. Something where they're dead, but it's just bruising, but they like that body. Can they jump from body to body?
Potentially, they are thought to sort of exist between the realm of the dead and the realm of the living. So they're sort of in this like purgatory section. So I don't. You would think I think it would make sense that they would be able to, but I don't. Obviously, again, I don't unfortunately know enough about. There's just not enough known about them, whether they can sort of hop from host to host.
That's fine. I think about the movie Fallen, where the demon went from body to body, and some of the guests I've had in the past, the way they described the Nephilim, it was the same. It was they were sort of demonic. They were de-bodified angels or de-bodified demons that their presence, they could jump from body to body. And listen, it's not important whether the Vitala can or can't. It's just curiosity. If there were zombies stuck in one body, that's fine too. But it seems like they unlike a zombie, they're not mindless. It seems like they still have their mind.
Yeah. No, there's actually a really interesting story that I'm gonna get into. They're definitely clever thinking beings, and they don't have to be. They don't necessarily have to be evil or malicious. They could be just wanting to have a second go at life, essentially. And I mean, really, to be perfectly honest, the person's dead. Like, if someone could take his body, I'm all for it. That's probably going to be really controversial for people, but...
Well, I mean, on one level, yes, but it would be worse if they could do what I did. Like, they can, choose their victims. Let's just say that you wanted to be like, you always want to be like a beautiful woman, and you decide to murder Sofia Vergara or something, and then you took her body. I mean, or if you wanted to be Chris Helmsford, and then you murdered him and took his body. I mean, there is a different level of morbidity between taking an already deceased and then making one deceased to take their body. So maybe it's better that we don't know the answer. Of course, this is Garden of Doom, so we're full of inconsistencies. I failed to tell people a little bit about you, aside that you have these two podcasts. So Theshira is from Indian descent, but she's born and raised in South Africa. I believe she's third or fourth generation in South Africa. Recently, though, she moved to Scotland. Now she's doing some studies there and whatnot, but we have a true tricontinental person here. So that's why you have someone that's doing the Asian Tapestry and Legendary Africa. And depending on how long she spends in Scotland, pretty soon she'll be doing the fair folk and giants and Merlin too, I'm sure. It's just inevitable. All these interests seem to dovetail into one another. So we've got a Vitala who is sort of a demonic spirit who may or may not take many bodies, but certainly takes one. Hopefully they pick a body that's not too decomposed for their taste, but maybe they just like the Terra. And we're not sure how they kill other people. We don't know if they drink blood or if they eat the people. And the reason I ask these things is, vampires drink the blood. Werewolves and zombies tend to eat the flesh of their victims. So these might be distinguishing features. Witch is not so clear, but there's a lot of witch lore out there where they actually do steal babies and kill babies and use babies for things. Ask any adherent to QAnon, but also ask the ancient Sumerians, and because possibly the first witch, or at least the first witch that made it to statues and writing that we've identified, is Lilith. And in a lot of ways, she's sort of like a harpy demon baby stealer, which, as fun as that is, it's got to be a metaphor for why so many women died in childbirth and pregnancy, and why so many babies didn't survive, delivery.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we've always been using myths and laws and creatures to attribute what is really just medical deaths. That's understandable.
It is, of course, it is. And it's not even that we haven't really stopped either. I mean, we still do it, and I mean, as recently as a couple hundred years ago, with the various bubonic plagues and Black Deaths, they were the Ring Around the Rosie song. It's a children's song about why there's so many rose petals, and it was the cover. The scent of the dead, but the red was sort of floating all over the place because that's how they covered the burning body. So there were rose petal ashes combined with person ashes. But forget about me. Nobody needs to hear from me. So
I love that.
Yeah. Well, you have to have me on your show, and I'll babble a lot. But
oh yes, please.
Yeah, people are here to listen to you talk and tell us about. So what's our next scary creature, lore, myth, something?
Oh, well, actually, before we move on, I just wanted to tell this. It's interesting about the Vitala because the one story that's quite a detailed story that we have presents it as almost a sage-like creature, which I thought very interesting.
Yeah.
Like in great contrast to a modern vampire zombie. So one of the properties of the Vitala, before we get into the story, is that it actually has the power to see the past, present, and future because they're in this liminal space of not being dead, not being truly alive. So they have access to basically your 3 dimensions, if you want to say that. And so quite a few people allegedly have tried to capture and enslave the Vitala to use their powers to basically enrich themselves. And we've seen this in a Sanskrit work called Vikram Batal or Vitala Panchimshati, which I apologize to anybody who actually speaks Hindi if I'm butchering this. Unfortunately, I'm actually from Tamil background and I can't speak Sanskrit, so sorry. And this is a collection of Indian legends, and our earliest known copy is, I think it was written in the 11th century, but it's obviously based on ancient oral tradition. So the story is about a legendary king called Vikram Ditya. And Vikram, so the story goes, promises a Vamachari, and a Vamachari is a sorcerer, that he will go and capture a Vitala. So the sorcerer has told him to go and do this, to sort of like prove himself in a way. Mm-hmm. So Vikram finds and tries to capture the Vitala, and the spirit proposes a deal. So that's already telling us that it's obviously got a very, it's not just a stupid creature. And the Vitala says that he'll tell Vikram a story, which will end with a riddle. And if Vikram cannot answer the question, the Vitala will allow him to capture him.
Sphinx-like. Sphinx-like. Very Sphinx-like.
Yeah. That's just very interesting. There's so much overlap. It's really cool. And then if Vikram knows the answer, the Vitala will go free. But if he knows the answer, he can't lie about not knowing it, because if he does that, his head will explode into 1,000 pieces. Which I would like to have. That's how the story goes, because that would be cool. But
sure, of course, yeah. Full scanners.
Yeah. So the Vitala tells his first story and his riddle, and Vikram guesses the answer correctly. And he tells him second story and third story, and eventually 24 riddles later, Vikram is still trapped in the cycle of having to tell the truth. So he comes to his 25th story, and I actually want to hear your answer to this riddle, because it messed my mind slightly. So this is the story. So there's a father and a son in the aftermath of a devastating war. They find a queen and a princess alive in the chaos and take them home. The son marries the queen, and the father marries the princess. Eventually, the son and the queen have a son, and the father and the princess have a daughter. The Vitala wants to know what is the relation between the 2 newborn children.
Okay, so father and princess.
That's right.
Queen
it's a riddle podcast.
Son. And they both have children. We don't know the gender of the children.
One is a girl, one is a boy.
Well, they're both half siblings.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're also half. Yeah, they're both half siblings.
Right. I think that would be the answer, but I'm assuming it's because also the father would also be the grandfather of the half of his child's half sibling.
Yeah, it would be the half grandfather, and the queen would be the half grandmother as well. So I guess it depends from whose perspective. But I mean, we don't know the relative ages of king and son and queen and daughter, and the queen and daughter are not related to the king and the son. So there's no like cousin stuff or incest stuff. I mean, so I mean, you could have a 30-year-old queen and an 18-year-old princess.
So half siblings. I'm not entirely sure why that stumped him so much, but it is a bit of a confusing riddle if you've done 24 previous ones, I guess.
Well, one answer is that neither you or I got it right, and we're not that clever, or B, maybe Vikram wasn't that clever.
True. He can answer thus, and Vatala is captured. Then, while they're going back to the sorcerer...
Maybe Vatala wanted to be captured, and it was...
That's what I think, yes.
Yeah. He was pretending it was a test to make Vikram think that he's smart, but he really wanted to be captured because that's where he's not really captured. This is where his fun begins. That's what
I'm thinking, because it turns out that this is actually a good Vatala. I'm going to say a decent guy.
But he sounds like, but they sound a little bit like tricksters, I mean, a little bit like Loki or Jackal or Coyote, in a different way, but a little. Well, anyway, I'll let you tell the story, but that's sort of what I heard a little of.
No, I think you're right. It's sort of like a bit of a test, like trying to see whether Vikram is sort of worthy of his help and tricking him and having a bit of fun and annoying him. I mean, 25 riddles, I probably would have been ready to just get out of there.
Yeah, or a monkey in Chinese lore.
Or Anansi or Jackal. Love those tricksters.
Yep. Lots of them. There's a trickster everywhere. I mean,
there really is.
One day we'll have to figure out why there's always a trickster, but for another story.
Makes things interesting.
So yes, so Vikram and his Vatela. By the way, how's Vatela spelled? Is it Vatela?
Vetala.
Okay, close.
Vatela, yeah.
Cool.
I'm not entirely sure what the etymology of that is.
Well, it doesn't matter because I'm spelling it in English, and it obviously started in a different Sanskrit, I guess. But whatever it is, our translation is just phonetics anyway.
So they're busy journeying back, and the Vatala is telling Vikram now about his life story, even though he's not really alive. This is where it gets really weird, because the Vatala talks about his parents. Now, that's something that's very strange to me, because this is a freaking demon or whatever. But anyway, his parents were struggling to conceive, and they went to the same sorcerer who's now asked Vikram to capture the Vatala. And the sorcerer blessed the parents and granted them twin sons. So that would be the Vatala and his brother, I suppose, in exchange for allowing the sorcerer to educate the sons himself. So during the education, the Vatala was taught everything in the world, but was treated very badly, while his twin brother was taught only what he needed and treated well. I find it quite interesting that there's always a duo in a lot of these mythologies.
Yes, there are.
Sort of like the whole, what's like a favored son versus the one that's neglected.
Yeah, well, it's better than the baby that's left in the woods, or or put in a bed of reeds and push down a river. This will work out.
It'll be fine. Live your life.
What could go wrong?
Yes. Anyway, the Vatala found out that the sorcerer was actually planning to return his twin brother to the parents, but was going to sacrifice him because he was an all-knowing Kumara. Now, I'm not entirely sure, but I'm assuming Kumara is a reference to the 4 Kumaras, which are the 4 sages from the Puranic texts in Indian religion. Somebody probably knows this a lot better than I do. So the 4 Kumaras, Sanaka Kumara, Sanatana Kumara, Sanandana Kumara, and Sanat Kumara, they're all sons of the god Brahma, the creator god, who wandered the earth and was teaching others, basically. So this is basically the Vatala is like this very, very wise sage in a way, because he was taught everything. And so if he were to be sacrificed by the sorcerer would become immortal and possess the power to rule the world, essentially.
Well, who doesn't want that?
Yeah. So then Vatala goes on to explain that what the sorcerer's now trying to do is he's actually going to sacrifice Vikram. He's going to make him bow before a statue of a goddess, and then behead him. and this would then give him power to take over the Vatala and go on with his plan of world domination. So the Vatala tells the king that he needs to behead the sorcerer instead, and Vikram does this, and basically it's a very big happy story, and Vikram gets blessed by Lord Indra and Kali Devi, a god and a goddess, and the Vatala grants Vikram 2 wishes. One, that the sorcerer's soul is redeemed and he's allowed to be reborn as a good person, or basically cleansed and allowed to move on, and that the Vatala will return if Vikram needs him again. So it's almost like a genie sort of deal that ends up happening.
So Vikram gets to rule. He can call upon the Vatala if he needs to, and he can get the sorcerer too, but he can get a good sorcerer. So this is all worked out very well for Vikram.
Yeah, which is interesting because I'm not sure like where in there you get this whole malicious Vatala story. So that's obviously come from a different source that we don't seem to have anymore.
Yeah, this is way too happy, much too happy an ending. Let's go something more terrible.
I mean, there was a beheading, but that's about it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but just one. So.
Oh yeah. So the next creature is called a boot, or I'm not sure that's how you pronounce it. It's Bhoot.
No one's going to correct you.
This is also from Indian myth. This is probably also the entire Indian subcontinent, but apparently the belief in ghosts, which is what a boot is, was particularly prevalent in Bangladesh, Bhutan, and as well as India. So that's I'm not entirely sure why it was so. They're just very superstitious, I think.
Okay.
So these ghosts.
Maybe the howling winds in the high mountains.
I think so. Yeah. There's apparently quite a collection of supposedly haunted areas in India and Bangladesh, like cremation grounds. You can see dilapidated buildings that are thought to be grounds for restless spirits, or burning ghats. The steps leading down to a river would sometimes be on flame. They'd be on fire, and nobody knew why, so they would think that it's because of a spirit that set the water on fire, essentially.
Oh. Was it a volcano?
No, I'm assuming there was something to do with some sort of oil that must have been sitting on the top that then burst to flame. That's the only explanation, aside from the supernatural explanation.
Greek fire.
Yeah, basically. So these boots are restless spirits, and this is because they usually have died a very, very violent death. So somebody murdered them or massacred, that sort of thing. Supernatural sort of chopped their head off with a electric garage door. Do you remember that Supernatural episode? That was great.
Okay. So here's where you're going to hate me.
No, you don't watch it.
I saw one episode of Supernatural and said, yeah, that's enough.
Yeah. It's not great after the first season.
Yeah, well, I got to the girl being splattered on the ceiling. I'm like, is that the best they got? I think I might have watched part of the second episode and found it very unsatisfying and decided I'm too old for this. This is not for me. I'm an old man. I'm an old man.
As your t-shirt says.
I'm exactly. I'm wearing my grumpy old man t-shirt. Yes, of course. Yeah, no, my horror needs to have more levels to it. I'm very persnickety. I'm a bit of a horror snob.
I love it. We need to have a separate episode where we just rant about horror.
No problem. I've done that with others as well. I've done that with the great Kevin Castle, who you probably know, and also Vincent, who is a professional wrestler currently working with Impact Wrestling. But yeah, so I've talked horror before, but yeah, I'm a bit of a horror snob. Which means I hate most of it, but what I like, I really like. And the good thing about me is that, like, while most people like more things than I do, if there's something that I like, generally speaking, 99% of people are going to like it because it is truly good. So I do have good taste. It's just limited.
Yeah. No. You get really, really good horror, and then a lot of it is sort of, it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's nothing special, and some of it is just plain ridiculous and stupid. But
I also laugh at inappropriate things like during Halloween and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, the violence was so silly that, like, the good violence made me laugh, but you're not supposed to laugh at that. Or in Midsommar, when she finally revealed that she was evil and she's burning her friend in a bear suit. I thought that was excellent. I'm cheering, and the rest of the people in the theater are like, "The hell's wrong with you, man?" Like,
Midsommar was great. I was like, this is obviously her catharsis. Like, this is great. Right. Yeah, okay, they died, but it was good for her soul.
Right, to turn evil. And then I don't know, everyone's going, "What the hell's wrong with you?" I'm like, that's a very fair question. I don't know.
We're just too deep, okay?
yeah. I've got a Vitella in me. What do you want?
Sorry, I took us down a whole tangent.
Meanderings is what we do in the Garden of Doom. We can go up, we can down, we can go into the hollow earth, we can go into other dimensions. It's all good. Our roots go deep, our boughs go wide and high. Don't worry. And there's swamplands, and don't worry. The Garden of Doom is like one of those magic kingdoms that knows no boundaries.
Love it.
Yeah.
So particularly violent death, or the classic, there's something matter that hasn't been resolved before they've died, or if they haven't been given the correct funeral arrangements or rituals and stuff like that.
Now that is classic, because there's ghost stories from around the world. Most of them do involve some being that has some type of unfinished business, which isn't always revenge, but oftentimes is revenge.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to stick around because you forgot to take the muffins out of the oven or something like that.
No, that's not going to do it. It's not going to be about muffins, unless, of course, you're the ghost of the Muffin Man.
Yeah. Right, so the belief in supernatural. Like, how do I recover from the Muffin Man?
Yeah, so this is only our second time meeting, so she's not used to me. So it takes a special kind of someone to jump right in and to be able to roll with it.
I love it. So Boot comes from a Sanskrit word Bhuta, which relates to past and being. So obviously it's just ghosts of the past. And it's just boring, but it's really I love etymology and I love lexicon and stuff like that. So I was particularly interested in the fact that the word has also been adopted into idioms. So like one idiom is boot sawar hona, so that means written by the boot of something, which essentially means taking an obsessive interest in that thing or work unrelentingly towards a goal. Which is interesting that they're taking what is essentially a demonic spirit and using it in a quite a good way. I mean, basically saying you're ambitious.
You have to harness the resources that you have. I have what is probably a foolish question, but we all know that in British English, boot means trunk, like a trunk to a car. And
all the boots that you wear.
What's that?
All the boots that you wear.
Or the boots that you wear. But, typically we hear go in the boot, and they're talking about the trunk to a car. So I am wondering that during the colonial period where the British were in India, did the Indians oftentimes sort of, have an joke unknown to the British, that when they said, put this in the boot, and he's like, yeah, I'll put that in the boot for you, or I'll get a boot for you. Actually they're complying, but in their minds they're thinking, I'm going to get a ghost on you.
I would love that, but did the word boot exist in that time in that sort of reference?
I don't know. I'm assuming the British English hasn't changed that much in the last, couple hundred years, but you're right. I don't really know that. All right, well, there goes that. And I'll just take this moment.
That'd be hilarious, though.
I think anybody who listens to Garden of Doom, and I'm sure Asian Tapestry probably both realize that, but just for the sake, a lot of people think Sanskrit is a Middle Eastern or Arabic or ancient Hebrew language. It is not. It is an Indian language from the Indus Valley that's made its way. There weren't a lot of written languages, so it's made its way, further west, of course, and probably east too. But it is an ancient Indian language. So the that you often see, which sort of looks like that backwards 3 or E with almost like a Hebrew chai. I have one tattooed on my back. That's Sanskrit.
Okay, yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I know it's understandable that people sometimes can mix it up. They're all related. I mean, Sanskrit's close cousin is ancient Greek, for example. So it all overlaps a lot. So
I know we've talked about linguistics on this show, and we're going to get some experts to actually explain how the Indo-European linguistics family are from one family. I have a feeling somewhere in that story, in the origin, that's sort of where we find some of why there's so much overlap in so many parts of the world with myths and legends, and why certain things grow and don't grow. But it doesn't matter. This is not time for Jeff's series right now. I've got lots of them, but that's my working theory these days. But yeah, so back to the boot. So the boot is a ghost with unfinished business, or a spirit with unfinished business. We need not call it a ghost; we'll call it a boot. And just in case it takes it personally. And so how can the boot manifest its will upon the living and corporeal world?
So the boot seems to not necessarily have to possess somebody. In its own form, it can take both human and animal forms. And when it's human, supposedly looking like human, their feet are like always backwards.
Oh.
And that's how you can see, okay, this is not a normal human. They don't walk backwards, but basically their feet are rotated. Sometimes it's their arms, sometimes something is basically wrong. Something is odd with them. And they also sort of hover a little bit off the ground. So also, again, classic ghost trait. But this is because the ground in sort of Hindu mythology is sacred. And so the boot can't touch it because, it's sort of like putting a demon in charge. You'll burn to death. It also has no shadow. So that's another way to check with what you're dealing with. And interestingly enough, it speaks with a nasal accent, and that is a very specific trait that I find very interesting and why.
So if you see an animal or person with backwards limbs hovering just a couple inches above the ground, but speaking like Jerry Seinfeld,
exactly.
that is that you know that you're in trouble. Now, can you outrun a boot, or is resistance futile?
Seems like basically often you wouldn't be able to know that it's a ghost until, I suppose, you recognize these features. So one of the things it does is that it often wanders around a forest and it finds people who are walking by themselves and joins them as a companion, and slowly integrates into their life. Or it takes the form of a very attractive woman by the roadside, and a man by himself is driving in the car and sees her and offers her if she wants a ride. And slowly, they eventually realize what this actually is, but by then it's too late.
Okay, so I imagine they use the dark so that it's sort of covered, that they're not exactly touching the ground. The backwards foot thing, how do you cover that up? I mean, like giant boots, a very long blousy dress.
I'm going to say they usually wear white clothes. I'm going to say a long white dress. And if you're a very attractive woman, maybe they're going on that. Maybe they're thinking that they're too distracting for some people.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends who's around. It's like, all right, well, hey. Top part looks like Padma Lakshmi, but the feet are backwards, but the rest of it still is Padma Lakshmi. So, yeah, I mean, that's a win. I'll take that. I've done worse with women with regular feet. So, I mean, not from experience, but okay. So, yeah, I could see where the trap can be set. I also imagine that maybe they have any sort of enchanting spells that maybe you couldn't see it, or it's just they rely on their they sort of insinuate themselves into the crowd. People are looking up instead of down at the feet. Maybe the blousy dresses there covering it up, and they pray. So how do they kill? Do they bite? Do they strangle? Do they hit? Do they have to use a club? Do they have enormous strength?
I'm not entirely sure how they would kill them. Essentially, they lure usually young men to them and then kill them. So
it's like a wraith, like one of those Harry Potter things. They just suck out your soul.
That's what I'm imagining. I'm imagining that sort of like a harpy, sort of being all alluring, and then bring them into this darkest corner of the forest and then
Like a
and
succubus.
not just what they really are. Suck their soul out of their mouths.
Okay. All right, that works.
I like that idea.
I like that idea also. And that will give them more strength so they keep getting stronger and stronger. All right.
Yeah.
It's weird. There's lots of myths around the world with creatures with their feet backwards, and I don't know what that means exactly, but...
I have a theory.
Okay, let's hear it.
I have a theory. Because I know that there's a creature in Africa myth. I don't know whether it's the Asambasam, which is like a vampiric creature. I think its feet are also backwards.
Yeah,
I might be mistaken.
there's also at least one in South America, and my understanding is they walk in a way so that because the feet are backwards, you think that you're tracking them, but they're actually tracking you, or they're you think you're sneaking up on them, but you're not. So that you're unaware. You're looking down while they're behind the tree. They've already they're behind you or something. You think they're in front of you, but they're behind you, kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I'd gotten this idea from somewhere, but I honestly don't ask me where. But I'm thinking that their feet are actually pointed backwards towards death, and they're forcing themselves forward into the living world, whereas their feet are pointing back to where they actually belong.
Oh,
which I guess is a little.
That is deeper. That is deeper than they sort of are just tricking you with the footprints being, taking you off in the wrong direction. Because either way, I mean, where the feet are, I mean, in some ways, the stories I heard don't really make sense because the feet are going forwards. I mean, and they're actually walking backwards. I mean, you're actually going further away from the creature than towards it, right? I mean, so unless they're circling around in a different direction, or they mask their tracks to get behind you. I mean, if you follow the feet in the forward direction, their feet are backwards. You're still walking in the other direction. It's more of an escape mechanism than a trap. I mean, you could use it either way, but if you just go with the stories I heard, it doesn't quite make sense. So yours is better, that they push themselves out of death. And they sort of, I mean, I don't know if this was on purpose, but in the movie Malevolent, which was another one that I thought was terrible, I laughed at when I'm not supposed to laugh. Basically the limbs were all backwards, mostly because the demon part of the soul, occupied the back quarters of her body, I suppose. Was sort of what was happening there. And anyway, need not talk about Malevolent, but all right. So we've got our boot. We have our backwards feet situation. All right. Who's next on our tour?
It's okay. Were-tigers.
Oh, white tigers. This is good.
No, were-tigers.
Were-tigers, even better.
So this is because I really enjoyed the were-hyena story.
Sure.
So I wanted to know what India has. So we have were-tigers, and this is like pretty interesting stuff for me because it's actually quite detailed. There's people that have done actual research papers on this, which I've read.
Okay.
So I feel like I did a lot of research.
Good. Well, I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to pretend I did the research. So there we go.
Do it. So this, and here I have actually specific people. This belief actually originates with the Garos people of India, which is a Tibeto-Burman speaking ethnic group of northeastern India. They're sort of cousin groups of the Naga and the Kuki-Chin tribes. And this is in the western highlands of Meghalaya and the southern foothills of Assam and northern Bangladesh. Don't ask me to point this out on a map because I wouldn't be able to. But
fair enough.
So essentially, as the name says, these are humans who could turn themselves into tigers. But as I'll talk about later, is that there's actually a few different kinds of ways that they could do this. The Garos people, touching briefly on that, they're quite interesting in that the women in the community were held in high esteem. So they had a high status. There was a matrilineal system with succession passing from mother to daughter, which I found a bit unusual given the status quo in Indian culture. And also, Hinduism is the prominent religion in India, but 95% of the Garos are actually Christian, which, again, interesting.
This is interesting. That is interesting. I wonder if there's any connection with the were-tiger and other were creatures being sort of in what is now Christian areas. I don't know the origin of the were anything. could well predate Christianity for all I know.
Probably does, and then everything sort of, then you get the were-hyena and the were-tiger, the werewolf, and it's all sort of spread across the world.
I did have a guest recently, and this show dropped probably in mid-August, Maria Wheatley, and one of the things she talked about were the demon dogs, the black dogs that guarded the tombs of important people. And I asked if there was any connection to the werewolf there, and she said yes. And this was predated Christianity. This was sort of the Druids, whatever it was BCE. It was 4,500 years ago or older. The Barrow lands, and so there's not necessarily a connection to the origin of the were-tigers, but at least in that one case, the age was older. But I mean, it wasn't exactly a werewolf. It was just sort of my projection of what how guarding the tomb of an important person are these demon dogs and they can, and there was something cyclical involved, could be transmuted into the person turned into a werewolf.
Mm-hmm. I have to say the interesting thing, we can talk more about this after I go through these creatures, is that it's actually, I found it very difficult to find macabre or I guess traditionally demonic beings in Indian culture, and I don't know whether it's to do with the reverence that they hold for a lot of their religion and their belief. I mean, as you can see, even though they say these creatures can be malevolent, a lot of the stories are actually where they're helping people or they're being made to help people, which is, I guess, just says something about the culture.
That's nice. See, you're trying to be nice, but we're in Doom, so Doom backwards is mood, and you're killing the mood. So let's get some were-tiger violence going on here.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
So the Garos people have always had a bit of an interesting relationship with the local tiger population, in that they usually leave them alone unless a tiger attacks them, in which case they hunt them down and eat them. And there was a local oral story that was told, and it involves a Garo king from a long time ago called Rai Singh, and he could apparently turn himself into a tiger and then back into a human. Now, were-tigers were thought to eat human flesh, obviously in their tiger form. And it's interesting because there's also the same belief in southern China, where the tigers also eat people, but the were-tigers actually suck blood instead of eating the flesh.
Excellent.
So you're getting into weird vampiric territory there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's about 3 types of were-tigers in Garos legends. The first are the Machadus, who are shape-shifting men, and they're very aggressive types of were-tigers. And we get most of our beliefs from colonial writing. So during the British colonization of Bengal, we have basically people, English scholars, writing down the oral stories of the Garos people. So in the early 18th century, we have J. Eliot, a British magistrate, and he spent some time among the Garos and documented this story. And a lot of the locals claimed that there was a medicine that you could put on your forehead, and that turned you into a tiger. And so during their transformation, they would tear off their clothes and their earrings and rip their ears, into bloody bits in the process, and tear their hair out. Very much of the werewolf sort of transformation that you often see in movies.
Yeah.
And interestingly, Eliot actually got hold of some of this supposed medicine, and he tried it out on himself, which I thought was stellar. And reported no such effects. That nothing happened. And he thinks that the medicine eventually goes off, basically sours on their forehead, and there's toxic fumes that then make them hallucinate all of this.
Or he returned home, used it, and he was Jack the Ripper.
Oh my god. And he does not remember it.
Well, maybe he does. Maybe he just doesn't want anyone to put the dots together. Now, I don't know if the timeline works out, but if it was Jack the Ripper, like the 1890s, something like that?
It checks out.
Okay. All right, I'm going with that one. Did it actually work?
I love it.
And he went, okay, good. All right, look at that. We've solved the mystery, and we've preserved the were-tiger. Let me ask you a question about the were-tigers. Do you actually take the form of a tiger, or do you take the form of a humanoid tiger? And if a tiger, is it like an oversized tiger or just like a regular tiger? Which is terrifying enough. But.
Yeah, I would say that this version, Machados, who are shapeshifting directly into a tiger, I'm going to say those are human-sized tigers that are very, very aggressive. There's another type that is the Machapogipas. And they actually, basically, they are asleep and they dream that they are a tiger. And what happens there is that their human soul leaves their body, enters the tiger's body, and their souls join together. And that, I think, is just a normal tiger. I don't think it's any more aggressive. So I'm going to say, I think the Machados are probably huge tigers.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. All right, well, good. Well, they rip and kill, and then there's a lot of violence there, so we're happy. A little bit like Hulk,
Yeah. Kind of like that. I mean, it definitely seems to be something that they're deliberately doing, so that's just very aggressive people.
Well, more like She-Hulk then. But all right, very cool. We got the were-tigers, which I think are pretty awesome. I mean, if I was going to choose between a werewolf and a were-tiger, I'm taking a were-tiger every time.
Yeah, although I think I'm going to take the were-hyena. I found that pretty cool.
Fair enough.
So there's a separate sort of subsection of the Machados, and that's the Machamarus. And
so we had a little bit of a technical freeze. The Wi-Fi went down on my side of the equation. Where we left off was that she was going to tell us about a particular subset of the were-tiger. So if there's a little bit of overlap or something duplicate, that's the reason why. It is not the guest's fault. It was my Wi-Fi's fault, which is probably because of the ridiculous heat here and rolling brownouts that they don't quite exactly tell us about.
No, it's all right. I'm from South Africa, and having load shedding, I am all too familiar with Wi-Fi.
Well, I'm a spoiled American from a East Coast suburban city, and I don't expect these things to happen. Gosh darn it! So I'm obviously outraged. But anyway, it resolved itself after a few minutes, and here we are. So back to the were-tigers and the particular subset of the were-tigers, which I hope are especially terrifying.
Well, I think you can. Yeah, I'm just sorry to disappoint with the Indian culture. It's going to get really scary with the African. I promise you.
Oh.
So the subset is in Machamarus, and these are thought to be more like evil spirits or demons rather than people who can take the appearance of a tiger. And they usually appear in human form during the day, so they can integrate themselves, and then they become tigers at nightfall. And that's when they go out and they slaughter humans and goats and cows and basically anything that they can get their claws on, usually hunting in a group or by themselves. And they're actually considered a group of people by the Gars, and they were thought to be cannibals who lived in villages deep in the forest. So I found it very interesting because I was wondering maybe these were actual people who were cannibalistic, and so the Gars just thought of them as these ferocious tiger beasts.
Yeah, perhaps they put tiger pelts, over their heads with the claws, whatever, and the head over their head. So, and maybe they painted themselves in, war paints that were yellow and orange and black, and maybe they did that on purpose to terrorize. But yeah, your cannibal theory checks out, because if they're tigers, they're not cannibals unless they're eating other tigers.
Although I suppose they eat other humans. That's what the thinking was.
Right. Now, if they're were-tigers, I guess, it's like Schrodinger's cat. They exist in both worlds. They're sort of cannibals, sort of not. In our jurisprudence, it might be reasonable doubt whether they're cannibals or not. But anyway,
getting legal on me.
That's right. I'll stop. Sorry. I can't turn off all parts of me.
Objection speculation.
That's right. It sustains. Counselor, you're held in contempt. The bailiff will take me out. So, all right. So off the were-tigers, we're going to get to something else. And you're right. the Indian stuff in the subcontinent doesn't sound so terrifying. Before we move on, I want to see if I have the geography even close to right. So obviously, we all know India is basically like a smaller version, sort of a South America shape-wise, except in sort of in the middle of Asia, between the Arabian and the Sea and the Indian Ocean. I think on its northeast side is Bengal, and I think on its northwest side is Bangladesh and Pakistan.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Okay, because wasn't Bangladesh at some point East Pakistan? Like there was a civil war after the partition.
I think you're correct if my history knowledge checks up.
Now, you said that you spoke Tamil, and from my last guest, they said Tamil was a language from the south. And the only reason I know the word Tamil is because there was a group called the Tamil Tigers. I believe they operated in Sri Lanka. Is Sri Lanka to the south, or is that they just took the name?
Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is to the south of India, as far as I understand. Yeah, there's no India and then Sri Lanka. Yeah.
Then it makes perfect sense.
So I think there would be, migration. The Tamil people were basically South India, and were characterized with their darker skins, and were apparently not as pretty as the Northern Indians. But I don't want to start a war, so we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, that's all subjective. So I mean, anyway, we don't need to get into pretty. We just know that the boots can be pretty to whoever their victim is. That's all we need to know here. Okay, so my geography is about right, or at least it sounds like. At least you're verifying that it might be. We're not confirming it. We both.
No, I think that's true. Yeah,
because Bengal sort of goes into Bhutan, and then you get into Nepal and Tibet and China, and all that. The Himalayas, sort of. I believe. Okay, so all right. So before I rudely interrupted you with my geography lesson, or confirming my geography beliefs, you were leading us into something involving Tamils.
I was.
Maybe not.
No, I think I was. I was talking about these basically cannibalistic machados.
Right.
And I think this is where the idea of them being sort of these ferocious beasts. They had thick hair covering their hirsute bodies, very, very strong, dark complexion, and they had a sort of apparently odd, nervous gait, which I think is probably like a tiger lope. So they were probably loping as they walked, and had a very growly voice as a human. And that these guys were savage and cruel and devious, and they were thought to be quick and silent killers, because what they would do is that they would follow their victims for a long time and wait for a weak point and leap into attack and basically tear their bodies apart.
Wow.
And I think the idea came from the so-called headhunters of the Garas people, which was back in 1876, I think. And the Garas were known as headhunters, and they would do the same thing. They would stealthily go through the forest and raid and brutally attack their neighbors, basically. So we have our knowledge of these were-tigers from a set of oral tales called Kata Gana, which also speaks of a magical method that the machados use to transform themselves. But we will never know this method because it's apparently a closely held secret. And if anybody were to tell what the method is, they would be instantly killed. Which, fair enough. And people still believe that there is a group of machados who still actually live nearby the current Garo community.
Oh. Now, do they live in villages? Do they live in caves? Do they just live in the jungle, sort of, freestyle?
I think, if we're going to follow the history, then I think they're living deep in the forest, essentially. Which I suppose makes sense if it's only suspicion that they exist. There's probably a few people loitering around in the forest that you come across and you think, oh, this is probably a were-tiger waiting to kill me.
Yes, that'll do it every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the I can't help but think about the sort of the beginning of the Jungle Book with Kipling. Obviously, the tiger is probably the apex predator, probably in the world, but certainly in India as well. So for a while, I imagine humans and tigers struggled, and probably still do to a lesser extent. So obviously, the tiger makes sense as being a sort of a central villain, out there. So just one of my little thoughts and probably pretty obvious observation there.
No, well, it's actually really interesting because that definitely was a serious problem. Them trying to live with tigers until I suppose we developed more modern ways of weaponry and stuff, and ended up destroying the environment, and so we lost a lot of tigers. But there's actually been a surge in the tiger population in India because of conservation efforts, and that's actually led to an increase in tigers killing humans. So it's interesting to see that that balance is being shifted again. Only now we're in favor of the tigers.
Well, unless you are in that particular band of humans, or until that human is you or your sister or your mom, assuming you're like your sister or your mom or your brother or your father or your baby or whatever.
Exactly.
So that I'm not going to get too into that. I mean, we can probably talk for days as to whether or not there's enough or too many humans on Earth compared to everything else. And what is or isn't somebody's plan, and if there is somebody's plan, and believe me, Garden of Doom gets into all those things in various ways, but not today, Satan, not today. So, all right. So I guess we're moving off of the were-tiger. So who's next on our parade of getting more terrifying?
Yeah. Getting more terrifying.
Well, it doesn't have to be good. Maybe, the were-tigers are pretty terrifying. The next one doesn't need to be.
I mean, yeah, the were-tigers are mostly interesting in the ways that they can change. There's another theory that they can be sprinkled with enchanted water, or there's magical clothes that they basically get put on, and then boom, they turn into a tiger.
Wait, you can't just dance over magical water. I mean, where would one find magical water?
From the Vamacharya, of course, from a sorcerer.
Oh.
Get the water enchanted, and then do a mantra of Narasimhaya, and while you're naked in the moonlight, and boom.
Oh, that's it. Okay, there you go.
You try it. You basically just pray to Vishnu, and you'll be all good.
Okay. All right. Got it. Check. On my list, pray to Vishnu.
Put that on your to-do list.
That's right. Get sprinkle dust to make me were-tiger. Perfect.
Yeah. Also, be careful of what you drink. To check out your milk before you drink it, because the boot can also enter the milk and then will possess you. I forgot to talk about that.
Oh, there's always a catch. I might need to assemble a little bit of a team, but there will be were-tigering in my future. That's my new purpose in life.
Yeah, and if you dream about being a tiger, then you've developed a connection.
Mm-hmm. No comment. I can neither confirm nor deny any dreams about tiger connections.
Very loyal of you.
Just know that every now and then my dreams are, the musical score does come from Survivor, famous for Eye of the Tiger.
So the last and quite short being that I was looking at is actually more global than just being in India, and we don't actually have a main Indian source text for it, and it's the monopod. Have you heard of it's a cryptid, essentially?
The monopod? No, but I'm guessing it has one leg.
Good job. Go to the front of the class. You got this.
All right, excellent. So it hops around, I guess like Hubert.
It literally leaps around, yeah. And the Greeks decided to talk about this creature when they went to India. We've got a Greek physician called Ctesias, who wrote a text called the Indica, India, in the 5th century BC. And this is the first text, Greek text rather, that speaks about India. And he talks about, amongst other things, he talks about the idea of a unicorn, which we think is probably basically a donkey with a small protrusion, and he made that into a unicorn. He talks about falconry, because that wasn't a thing in Europe yet. Talking parrots, all sorts of things. And he talks about the monopod, which, as you say, is only one leg. They leap really high with surprising agility. And weirdly, they lie on their backs during the hot months, and they lift up their foot in front of themselves because their foot is so huge, and they use it to shade themselves like a big umbrella.
Okay. I hope they have a lot of sunscreen for the bottom of their foot then.
I imagine it's just black.
Or is it like a hobbit foot, that it's basically so leathery and tough that it's not afraid of the sun? I ain't afraid of no ghosts. I ain't afraid of no sun. So the monopod, besides its one foot, what other descriptors would there be other than the one leg? How would you tell the difference between the monopod and an amputee?
So I think there's going to be no evidence of there ever being another leg, which is pretty easy to see with amputee. And from this, I don't know what would be the politically correct term. So I don't think this is a politically. I don't think we have to worry about that on the podcast. They appear to be very short, almost sort of dwarf-like beings.
Okay. We understand that the mythological creatures or monsters may take on forms. We don't want to offend anyone, but in the description of a being that may be fictional, we can use dwarf-like.
Yeah. So it's this tiny thing that basically leaps up and down. And some people, Philostratus, another Greek sophist, he thought that they existed in India and Ethiopia. So I thought this was a nice sort of concept to start going into my legendary Africa section.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, India and Ethiopia, because I don't see how that would have carried over. But
well,
anyway.
I can, and that's because Axum, AXUM, the Axumites were Ethiopians, and during the pre-Roman era, and the Roman era, which was sort of when the Greeks were sort of feeling their oats. I mean, Alexander the Great was pre-Roman. The Axumites were one of the premier powers in the world in trading, and they traded as far and wide as India and even further. So that could be it right there, the Axumite Empire. And it wasn't just the city of Axum. There were other tributary cities as well. So that it could be as simple as that. But I want to get back to our monopod friend. I mean, does he or she, first of all, do they have gender?
Unclear. I believe that the Norse actually encountered what they thought was a monopod, which I find very interesting, and they described it as a man.
Okay. Do they have two arms and a head, or are they sort of like the new Shmoo, or like a sort of a
a minion?
Yeah, like a minion, exactly.
Looks like it was a normal person aside from the one leg. Although I was also hoping that it was going to be a one-eyed creature, but sadly not.
Yeah, me too. A cyclops, or some fancy would say a cyclopes. Did it have a particularly favored weapon or method of killing, or does it just jump and land on you with its giant, strong foot and stomp you?
I would have loved that. Maybe he does that to children. He is in the saga of Eric the Red, Icelandic saga.
Yeah, Eric the Red. We're getting very way far from India there.
I know, right? I was like, this is going everywhere. He's described as shooting arrows at them, so clearly he has a bow and arrow, and he manages to kill one of the Norsemen.
Well, obviously, in his travels from India to Iceland, he stopped by the Scythians and the Iranics and the Turks and the Mongols, and got some bows and arrows. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's on his own D&D campaign. I mean, obviously, I think it's just something that is similar to a monopod, and all these cultures have different versions of the same thing, essentially. Because as you actually were on the point, there's a Spanish scholar who also talks about them, and he believes that they originated in Ethiopia, so it's just it's everywhere.
All right. Okay. Well, too bad there's not the giant stomp. You know what? If I was doing these things in ancient times, and I was one coming up with these things, I think my methods of death would be much more fun and interesting.
Definitely. You know what? I'll just write a story. I'll write the story for you.
That's fine. Stomp a lot of pulp. Think like when Quentin Tarantino goes from movie form to cartoon form in the middle of like Pulp Fiction or whatever, and like the blood just goes everywhere, just like
it's like eyes popping out of the skull.
That's right. Full pulp disaster, smush explosion kind of thing. All right, so our monopod. All right, well, can be terrifying, but maybe just giving war veterans with PTSD a bad rap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, the Indian law is very mild. Very mild.
Very polite. So you're polite even before the damn Brits came. Maybe that's why the Brits were able to take over a subcontinent with a billion people, and it was like,
They were like, oh, hey, neighbors, please have a seat, take our food, and enslave us.
Yeah. Cheers!
Good story. Yeah, so no, it's not very scary. I've got some great stuff lined up for the African.
Cheerio, we bloody well will. Yes, that was my version of a British accent. I apologize to everyone out there for the entire context of this. Yeah, the accent was terrible. The thought of it is terrible. I'm sure the history of it is way more complicated than that could ever possibly be. Okay, I don't know how to reverse and preserve myself from that. So maybe we should go. So Africa promises to be much more terrifying, which is awesome. Terror is good. And where else can people find you?
I can be found in the ether. No, my podcast. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. At the Asian Tapestry. And Legendary Africa. But you can find my podcast, The Asian Tapestry and Legendary Africa, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor. Basically, plug it into Google and it'll probably pop up eventually. Mm-hmm. Leave a review for Jeff, because he's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for that. Was there? I think the beginning you said there were some other things you want to chat about. Some things that were sort of like transcultural or something like that lived in all of our worlds. I don't know if I could be misremembered. Remember, I'm very old and very forgetful.
You're not old. I think it was basically the idea of the were-tiger. That was something that I think you can find everywhere, and there's just overlap everywhere. I think, and that I just find that very interesting, especially if you think about the mythology, the pantheon of Hindu mythology. You've got Vishnu, the head god, and he can be and Indra. And Indra is a god of lightning, and that can be related to Zeus, and that can be related to Thor. Mm-hmm. And basically, it's just interesting that I think it all comes from some kind of main idea, and ideas that have just been adopted in different ways to different cultures. I don't know enough. I mean, this is actually why when we first started, I started Legendary Africa with my sister. Sorry, I'm going off into a bit of a background tangent.
That's fine.
And we initially were just legendary, and we wanted to talk about world myths and world lore, and which was really, really fun. But I realized I'm not an expert on that. I'm not saying I'm an expert on African myth, but I just connected more with it because it's where I'm from. But we found it because we found so many similarities from Irish folklore and African folklore. And so that's why I said, no, look, I just want to focus on African lore, because I know there's so many other really amazing podcasts out there talking about European lore. And that's why I also started the Asian Tapestry subsequently, because that's also something that I connect with my heritage.
I'm glad you did. I think it makes sense to break them up individually, because you could go more deep, you can go regionally, then you can do the compare and contrast and all of that stuff. And, I doubt you'll ever run out of stuff, because both continents are huge. And, Africa is where most of us believe that humanity started in any sort of modern form, actually pre-modern form as well. And who knows when the legends and the myths and the lore started? We don't know what Homo erectus thought, or even what Homo habilis thought, or whatever. I'm probably getting my anthropology wrong there, but I know both those things came before Homo sapien and Homo sapiens sapien, which is, I think, sort of a made up term just to describe once there's some semblance of technology. I'm not even sure. Maybe it's not made up. And no one's exactly sure where the Neanderthals and the Denisovans fit in, and there's so many other humanoids that have been confirmed. I mean, there's two different kinds of basically hobbit people in the South Pacific, and they're genetically distinct. Homo florensis, I believe, is one, and the other is another word, and there's Homo Heidelbergus. I'm sure I'm saying that these words wrong, but Heidelberg is probably where they found the bones, which I guess is in Germany, or maybe the guy who found it was named Heidelberg. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into anthropology because I really only know enough to be dangerous, as you can see. But
maybe the monopod was actually real then. It's just a different type of human.
Yeah, I'm open to all of that. I mean, if depending on who you talk to, the Denisovans were giants, or they were elves. If you believe the descriptions of the Neanderthals, maybe they're what people thought were ogres, or or Bigfoots, or whatever, or trolls, or you make everything. You always make your villain or the other bigger and scarier than it really is. So I mean that's just otherization is sort of as old as humanity itself. I mean, even your two brothers Cain and Abel found a way to you're down to person 3 and 4 and you find a way to kill one. I mean, that pretty much says it all.
Humanity and their history of aggression.
Right. Yes, and this is where Garden of Doom. I mean, I feel like it's overdue. But you're right. There's a lot of great podcasts out there, and I've had the fortune of meeting a lot of them, and the community writ large is very, especially the independent podcasters are very willing to work with each other, and like none of us are worried about losing our audiences to someone else, or and things like that. It's most of us do it because we love it, not because we think that we're going to get picked up by Gaia or any other network. No, listen, I don't want to speak for Theshira, but I'm open. I'm sure she is. We're
not dissing the bigger podcasts. Right. We would,
or networks.
We're just saying we're a community.
Yeah, or the History Channel, or Discovery Warner Brothers. You want some cheap content? Yeah. Relatively cheap.
Yeah. I feel like your content is more HBO and mine's more like Disney.
That's fine, no problem. You can absolutely, you can. I agree. Book Theshira for Disney, and you can put me on HBO Max, or you put me wherever you want. Just don't put Baby in the corner. No, you can even put me in the corner if you're paying me for it. Yeah.
Employ us, please.
Right. But we're not really supposed to be looking at the depths of my soul today. We're supposed to be looking at monsters and things. So we're going to talk again soon about legendary Africa and about some of the monsters of Africa. Again, if you want to.
Swear they will be scarier. I've got sex demons.
Oh,
I've got huge snake cryptids that enter your body and do all sorts of shit to you.
Oh, see, this is what we're talking about. This is great. So
yeah, I will deliver. I promise.
You had me at sex demons. So all right. So this show is going to go all the way rated R next time. Maybe even beyond. We have to put a warning on that one. Maybe that won't curse. I'll put the explicit label on it. But yeah, so that's all right. So you get a taste of what Theshira's about, and so if you know that these are the scary stuff, and you want something that's kid friendly, or just something that's going to help you relax and expose you to other parts of the world, check out both of her podcasts. They're lovely. They really are. They are lovely. They're very enjoyable. She's a very good storyteller. And for those of us in America, or maybe other parts of the world, the accent is very pleasant to me. To you, it's just the way you speak. But for here in America, I'm a native New Yorker, which is a pretty ugly accent. So So yours to me is like very, it's almost sing-songy, I mean, so, for me, everything's perspective. But check out her podcast, and yes, absolutely rate and review it. And then, good ratings, good reviews, share with your friends, and then do the same for me while you're at it. And we will definitely look forward to the show regarding Africa. You can compare, contrast it to some of the stuff that I talked about over a year ago with PJ Black, where we talked about some African monsters and some other African myths and stuff like that. And then if you want some strict history on Africa, you can listen to the History of Africa podcast, but the episodes where Andy was on this show, and he's done at least 2 shows here as well. And if you're interested in some learning a little bit more about Indra and Vishnu and all of that, just dropped an episode August 19th, I think. It was called Veda and Into India, or Into India and the Veda cultures. Something. Anyway, you'll figure it out. The date anyway was Friday, August 19th, 2022. So it's pretty easy. The one thing I like about my show is that I think that it's timeless, which is the same as your show. It's rarely date sensitive. I try to avoid getting into current events to the extent possible. And I your shows do the same.
Yeah, no, I used to dabble a bit into history, and then I was like, you know what, I'm not a historian, I'm a classicist, I'm all about culture, not dates.
Yeah, well, we dabble with history, but when we dabble with history, we have actual historians on here. And we dabble with everything. I mean, this is an odd show. I've had the host of the Red Line podcast, which is current affairs, geopolitical, but, I wanted to talk about some things that were not widely known. Anyway, my audience should already know about that, but if you're new, then just know that this is a variety show, and there's whole lots of stuff there. And if you trust my little curious mind and the strange connections I made and the dots that sometimes I connect, or sometimes that I jump over 3 or 4 dots to get to the 5th, but you want to come along for the ride, I'll take you there. So again, thank you all for listening. Thank you for participating. We look forward to having our next show with you. And you've promoted all the stuff that you want to promote. By the way, I never tell anyone this, but if you want to follow me, you can follow me at Icarus Fell MD on Twitter. It's fine. And Garden of Doom has a Facebook page as well. So I sort of curate sort of articles about science, the weird, alligators attacking people, and all sorts of stuff from a bunch of different sources. So instead of you following 16 different, Facebook pages, I try to curate what I think that my audience would be interested in. So you can check that out too. All right. Thanks all. We will hear you next week on Garden of Doom.
इसके पीछे कोई साधारण आत्मा नहीं है. काला जादू करने वाली मंजुलिका है. मेरी चाहते तो फिजा में बहेंगी, जिंदा रहेंगी, होके फना. थाना तुम, थाना तुम, थाना तुम, थाना तुम, थाना तेरे तेरे. आमी जे